Today we're going over the penultimate battle of Demon Slayer because we're taking a look at the top slayers taking on the Upper Moon ranked 1, Kokushibo. Tension can be felt all around. Even before any swordsman reaches Kokushibo's location, he can sense that Akaza gave up on his goal to surpass him. Not just that, but his chance to become something more than a demon. At that, Kokushibo shows disappointment, but we can't pretend like there isn't now greater pressure on him to get rid of more humans. One of the top 3 is dead, and Kokushibo stands at the head of Muzan's defenses. He has to produce results. The same feelings reflected in Doma's response to Akaza's death. An unmatched duo is rushing to get Muzan's location, now that he's weakened temporarily and their master has sacrificed himself to do so. That's right, the youngest and oldest are working together, with Gyomei ahead likely due to his height and strides. Tokito's close behind, but the walls shift suddenly and push him off somewhere else. Even in his unpredictable place, Tokito tells Gyomei to keep going after Muzan. The youngest Hashira breaks through more walls with the momentum and falls down a floor. There, Kokushibo is standing and tells Tokito he seems familiar. Before you go back through all the chapters to find this detail, no, they haven't met before. Instantly, Tokito prepares to face him, and Kokushibo appreciates that his body has been well honed for his age. Not in a creepy way, don't worry. Faced with a demon so calm and taking his time to analyze, Tokito's nervous. He's ended up with the strongest of Muzan's demons. After his own scan, Tokito can tell just from Kokushibo's form that he was likely a swordsman as a human, and likely uses a breathing style. Knowing that, Tokito's body fights against him, the pressure and fear too much for him to hold in. Honestly, it just seems his instincts are telling him to flee. Kokushibo asks his name and realizes Tokito's his descendant. He noticed that the Sugikuni last name has died out, and offers his human name in return. Of course, Tokito's not sure where this is going, so Kokushibo explains that Tokito descended from one of his children. Because of that, he assumes Tokito must use the first breathing style like Yoriichi and Tanjiro. Somehow, this makes Tokito panic more, but before it can take over, he calms himself. Similarly to how he was before regaining his memories, his expression turns bland and calm. Now able to focus, Tokito goes for an impressive strike, and Kokushibo praises it, but isn't hit. After Tokito tries another form that misses, Kokushibo acknowledges Tokito's skill, not to mention his strength of will, considering his age, but he's not complimenting the swordsman so much as praising his own bloodline, and how it passed down his skills despite the centuries that passed. Tokito rejects him, and rightfully so, pointing out that barely any of his DNA is left. Tokito's gifts have nothing to do with him. Whether because of the difficult situation or his anger at being diminished that way, Tokito activates his mark on command. Kokushibo's surprised both by the mark and the mist breathing form he's never seen. In order to be respectful of his skill and the attack that Tokito created, Kokushibo finally unsheaths his sword. At that, he unleashes moon breathing too quickly to be stopped or countered, cutting off Tokito's hand in a blink. Without missing a beat, Tokito rushes to stop the bleeding so that he can continue fighting. This just confirms what he thought about Kokushibo and his swordsman background. Like before, Kokushibo impressed with how quickly he recovered from the serious wound. When Tokito tries to attack again, Kokushibo uses his momentum against him and presses him against a pillar with his own sword. He's pinned there like an insect to be observed. Kokushibo has already decided his fate, to turn him into a demon. So he keeps him there to not move until it's time, and probably to keep him out of the way of fighting that's coming. Although Kokushibo says that his heart is moved from discovering a descendant of his, can he really be trusted? He just seems pleased to find someone that he can mold into what he wants. According to Kokushibo, Muzan should accept Tokito since he's running out of demons to work for him. Unexpectedly, he starts to treat the bleeding of Tokito's wrist, with Genya hidden nearby with his gun at the ready. Kokushibo insists that if Tokito dies from blood loss, then he's not worth keeping alive. At that moment, Genya shoots, but Kokushibo knew he was there and stands behind him before anything can harm him. Faster than ever, Genya's hand is removed as well, the one holding the gun, with Tokito trying to free himself to help. No one would want to watch their friend be cut into pieces if they can help. After that first strike, Kokushibo cuts off Genya's other arm when he reaches for his sword. This is unnecessary brutality considering Kokushibo's speed. It's probably because he smells what Genya's been up to with demons before. Continuing his cruelty, Kokushibo slices Genya's body in half, but Tokito's still not able to pull the sword from the pillar to help. After Genya doesn't immediately die, Kokushibo's briefly surprised, seeing as he met another swordsman who ate demons in the past. Despite Genya's interesting constitution, Kokushibo doesn't want to let him survive since he's a fake demon. A crest of moon breathing is almost at his head when Sanemi shows up with his wind breathing and saves his brother. The wind user aggressively threatens Kokushibo, but he doesn't look at Genya. Sanemei's covering his entire body to protect him though. Sanemei's never been good with feelings or words. This is his chance. Sanemi tells Genya he's always wanted to protect him, and that's why he killed their mother. This leads into a flashback of Tanjiro saying that he could smell Sanemi doesn't hate his brother. He was just mad about Genya joining the corpse. Even now, Sanemi takes a moment to reprimand Genya for not getting married and having kids instead of this life. No one else in their family was able to be happy, so he at least should have been. At that revelation, Genya cries when every action Sanemi took starts to make sense. Even when he tried to blind Genya during the Hashira training, it was to keep Genya away from any intense fights. It may be an extreme way to go about it, but Sanemi likely couldn't think of any other option. Kokushibo finds their brotherhood nostalgic, remembering the sibling he held dear at one point. After some more, Sanemi threats towards Kokushibo, and they start a back and forth battle. Sanemi's speed and strength are enough to force Kokushibo into drawing his blade fully. Once his sword is out, Sanemi insults the look of it because it's covered in the same red eyes. After sending breathing forms towards each other, not taking a moment to rest, Kokushibo praises Sanemi. Likewise, Sanemi has goosebumps from how good Kokushibo is. To him, it makes sense Tokito got taken down so quickly, with how unpredictable this technique is, and he's only lasting this long because of how much more experience he has. Seeming more like Inosuke, Sanemi gets excited for this battle and how difficult it will be for him to overcome this enemy. They continue slashing each other, dodging, and Sanemi gets in close while swinging an extra sword. With unmatched speed, Sanemi took Genya's sword between his covered toes to try and slice Kokushibo, but even that isn't enough to injure the demon. But just the way that Sanemi keeps up makes Kokushibo nostalgic for the fighting from his past. But this can't last forever. Sanemi is starting to bleed pretty badly. Just then, another form of moon breathing cuts through pillars and gravely injures Sanemi. His blood loss is getting worse, and now he's struggling to move. Thankfully, the smell of his rare Marichi blood hits Kokushibo's senses, and Sanemi takes pride in becoming catnip for him. For that, Kokushibo had warned that if Sanemi moved, his insides would fall out from the deep gashes. But that doesn't stop him from rushing in with a manic smile. We then rewind to how Sanemi found out his blood was special. After taking his demon mother's life, he lost all joy and color in life as well, but continued to fight demons without training or proper weapons to fill the hole in himself. He was in a bad place while he did that, trying to get himself closer to the grave until he met someone from the Demon Slayer. Masachika was a kind guy and introduced Sanemi to a teacher so he could hunt demons the safer way. Sadly, Masachiki died while they were facing a stronger demon. Only Sanemi was promoted to Hashira after that. Despite the dire situation, Sanemi is able to keep fighting through stopping the bleeding by himself. He's also tightening his muscles to keep his organs inside. Others in the past have died from similar wounds at Kokushibo's hand, but there's so much more for him to enjoy now. Between the Marichi blood and Sanemi's prowess, still, it's been going on too long, so Kokushibo steps on his sword to still him. Just then, Sanemi relives a moment with Ubiyashiki, where he smiled at him during a meeting right after Masachika died. Sanemi took it as both insult and a man not getting his hands dirty while sending out others to be slaughtered. Of course, Ubiyashiki understands his anger and would have loved to fight too, if he could. He was too frail and not skilled enough. Sanemi changed his feelings towards him after that, since he reminded him of his mother's kindness. Not only was Ubiyashiki a willing pawn himself, but he had a replacement ready for after his passing. If that wasn't enough, Sanemi was shocked to find out that his master knew all the Slayers' names and kept all their wills for their loved ones. He even kept Masachika's for Sanemi, handing it to him. Before Sanemi can be cut down in the present, he grabs a hold of Genya's gun and shoots Kokushibo, but the demon blocks it with his sword. He tries to end Sanemi in retaliation. Except, that's right when Gyomei arrives to block the fatal move and lifts their spirits with his reliable nature. While Sanemi tends to his stomach wound, Gyomei tries to take over in the fight with confidence. Sanemi follows his orders the same way he respected Ubuyashiki as a leader. At long last, we're privy to Gyomei's effortless swinging of his unique weapon. Likewise, Kokushibo can't help but admire how perfectly trained his body is. It's the best he's seen in some centuries. Gyomei makes a show of swinging both ends of his weapon simultaneously, taking Kokushibo by surprise. It's a fight in an unparalleled level of skill that even preventing Kokushibo from performing multiple breathing forms in a row. When Gyomei strikes again, he wraps Kokushibo's sword with his chains to trap it, and gives him a little trim too. After some frustration, Kokushibo decides to go in close, seeing as it's mainly a long-range weapon, but he misses Gyomei due to his agility, which doesn't match his raw power and large stature. Then Gyomei breaks Kokushibo's sword when he traps it again, though it's able to regenerate. It's made from Kokushibo's cells after all. After Gyomei ends up slashed across the face, he decides to use something he was saving, the coveted Demon Slayer mark. In his case, they appear as cracks along his arms, maybe to reflect the jagged lines of a mountainside. Nearby, Tokito, who's still conscious, finally manages to pull the sword from his body. Despite the pain and loss of blood, he immediately heads to Genya so that he can join back in this battle. The two boys have come to terms with what this fight entails. They know they won't be surviving this one. More than anyone, Tokito knows his age and small size are working against him for self-healing, but he can still fight until his body shuts down. In the same way, Genya is intent on eating Kokushibo's hair if it means that he can keep his brother and the rest alive. Meanwhile, Kokushibo's disappointed that Gyomei has the mark, since he's older than the rest, so he will die soon from it. He's already past 25 years old, and Kokushibo mourns not him, but the loss of his skill and what he could leave the world. But Gyomei, along with every swordsman, is prepared to die at any moment. Not only that, but he's being dismissive of their resolve. The usually composed and calm Gyomei starts to show real anger, especially when Kokushibo continues talking about preserving his techniques through becoming a demon. If anything, that convinces him to stay human even more. There's no dignity in living a demonic life. In fact, Gyomei realizes that not everyone must have died after gaining the mark, meaning that skill can be passed on without becoming a monster. Bringing it up triggers Kokushibo, who shows off greater speed, with fast attacks that Gyomei struggles to defend against. Luckily, Sanemi's finished with his stitching and activates the wind mark for a boost. He dives into their fight, with their teamwork being easy since they had time to practice. As expected, Genya munches on Kokushibo's hair for his own power-up, while Tokito helps bring his body parts closer together so that he can regenerate faster. But something seems off about Genya. He starts hearing weird voices due to the demon cells, but he's also recovering faster than ever. It's a small price to pay in the long run. Strangely, Genya can hear the commands and warnings that Kokushibo's receiving from Muzan. If used well, that could come in handy for their side. And yet, the way that his body is changing so rapidly, he can't control it, and it makes him worry that he's consumed too much of Kokushibo. If there was any doubt as to Gyomei and Sanemi's standing, Kokushibo confirms that they are two of the strongest that he's ever faced. And he's been alive for centuries. Gyomei's weapon helps him to both detect things and attack, so Kokushibo considers Sanemi the weaker link. He tries to break Sanemi's sword, but he reacts too quickly for it to happen. They push back and cut off Kokushibo's ear. Afterwards, their combo attack shreds his clothing, but not much else. For them though, they end up cut up with no time to react. Kokushibo reveals a longer, almost living sword and prepares to get serious. More alive now, Genya helps Tokito wrap his hand to his wound, whereas Sanemi loses 2 fingers from Kokushibo's longer slashes, with Gyomei having saved him from losing his arms instead. They worry about the insane new reach and how to avoid attacks. A crow flies over them and it allows the Ubuyashiki siblings to keep tabs on the fights. Kiriya has faith in them taking down Kokushibo without support. As predicted, the extended range and shape of Kokushibo's sword keeps getting the duo sliced up. All they can do is defend themselves, not even getting close enough to decapitate him. Because of his wounds, Sanemi's been losing speed, but he insists that Gyomei focus on himself. That's when a wall of attacks are aimed at him, but Tokito's speed is enough to get Sanemi out of danger from above. At the same time, Genya prepares from afar. With all the pressure and the increasing danger of the fight, he can't help but worry he'll fail his surprise attack again. But after remembering Tanjiro's story of his weakness helping him to take down Gyotaro, he's able to act. After considering that, He eats Kokushibo's blade so that he can offer all the help that he can. Unlike with human forms, Kokushibo seems to have an endless amount. It could be due to how long he's lived or just that a demon's composition allows freedom. Regardless, it definitely overwhelms Gyomei now. He wants to attack, but he can't with how fast the forms are coming. That's when he realizes it's unnatural how fast he can counter and figure out their next moves. Without his regular vision, Gyomei's able to force his senses to see something more into the see-through world. Tokito tries to rush in so they can end him, and Gyomei's the first one to notice. After calling for Sanemi, they speed in, and at the same time, with Kokushibo planning to launch a blow that will end them all, what he doesn't expect is Gyomei's unlocked senses and how he throws in a bead while swinging to stop Kokushibo's swing. That's right when Sanemi's wind strikes him, erasing half his torso. It's enough of a distraction for Tokito to stab him next, even while losing another limb. It was only possible because Tokito also unlocked the see-through world. He's still not worried since they're too far to cut his neck. This gives Kokushibo time to reminisce on his past. He sees Yoriichi smiling and how his optimism about being forgotten in time aggravated Kokushibo. He couldn't agree and felt disgusted to lose what he was proud of. Kokushibo thinks about the battle, how Tokito persisted while in pieces, and how Genya used a demon art, how Sanemi kept his body together, and how Gyomei surpassed even demons. Still, Kokushibo's too frustrated to give in, so he stops his blood loss, preparing for more. Gyomei tells Sanemi to keep attacking so the 2 lives sacrificed won't be for nothing. Not only does this tell us that the young ones can't be saved, but that Sanemi's heart is breaking while he hides his face. He's losing his remaining family member. He and Gyomei charge in one final time, but Kokushibo successfully morphs into a monster beyond demonic, from forcing his body to regrow a head. The regeneration isn't as good as Muzan's though. They're ready to cut him apart as many times as it takes, but as Kokushibo sees his horrifying reflection on Sanemi's sword, it transports him to the past again. As a child, his brother wished to be a swordsman like him, but Kokushibo no longer looks like he did when he was admired. The place where Tokito stabbed him is falling apart, which distracts him enough for Gyomei to eviscerate his head. After Sanemi dives in, he tries to use his blood techniques, but remembers his brother's last day on Earth. He cried at seeing his brother's hideous form, so he finally accepts that it's too ugly to keep fighting after he's clearly lost. Kokushibo realizes that he's never wanted to do all those wretched things. For hundreds of years, he just wanted to be like his brother too. It's funny how family was Kokushibo's downfall, when it was also the reason for his unfortunate path. A twin was bad luck then, and his brother had a mark that made him seem cursed. Their mother loved them equally all the same, but their father forced them to live opposite lives. Yoriichi seemed weak and clung to their mother while never speaking. Kokushibo made a flute for him that he cherished, and Yoriichi finally spoke to ask his brother about his dream. But one day when he joined sword training, it revealed his true calling with the blade. Kokushibo wanted to know his secret. Their roles instantly reversed, and Kokushibo was mistreated and cast aside. When their mother died, he was meant to be sent away, but Yoriichi took his place and made sure to bring the flute. Afterwards, their mother's diary revealed her illness and how Yoriichi was supporting her. That was enough to ignite his envy towards Yoriichi. After failing to find his brother, Kokushibo had a family of his own. He felt free, and 10 years later, his camp was killed by a demon, and his brother was the one to save him. Without hesitation, Kokushibo abandoned his family to reach his brother's skill level. Though he and others trained to learn his breathing technique, no one could master it. They learned derivative forms or created their own instead. Eventually, the precious mark showed up on them, and even on Kokushibo. But even then, he couldn't use sun breathing and turned to his moon style. Marked ones started dying, and he knew he was running out of time. That's when Muzan offered to extend his life, to have a swordsman as a demon. Decades later, Yoriichi won their clash despite dying, and it enraged him. Even Muzan couldn't compare to Yoriichi. He sliced Yoriichi to pieces, but the flute, he still carried it. No one's face remains in his memories except his brother, the sun shining brightly, while he was the moon, a mere shadow. How did sun breathing still exist when he and Muzan made sure to kill anyone who knew it? He has nothing to show for his long life except the flute he once gifted Yoriichi as a child. While unconscious, Sanemi keeps swinging, until Gyomei puts him next to his brother, hoping his smell will ease his journey into the afterlife. Gyomei stays with Tokito, covering him and thanking him for his help. Tokito reunites with his family, but his brother's devastated that he's joining him so soon when he could have lived more. Even so, Tokito feels he's had a happy life, just like what Sanemi wanted for Genya. Sanemi awakens with a jolt and crushing fear. His brother is fading. Still, Genya's glad that he could protect Sanemi because he's the nicest person in the world. He crumbles away, leaving Gyomei and Sanemi in shambles. They have no choice but to continue forward towards Muzan's destruction. And that's it for the Kokushibo battle. We're going to be continuing the rest of the Infinity Castle arc next, and eventually going into the final battle against Muzan. If you like this video, guys, please give it a like, and if you're looking forward to more Demon Slayer content like this, please subscribe. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.